If you are a child of the internet like myself, then you have most likely simultaneously witnessed the rise and fall of many music icons in recent years. Icons who just a few years ago completely dominated music. Katy Perry is one of those artists. From 2008 until arguably 2018, Katy Perry was charting on the Billboard Hot 100 more frequently than you know whose name on Fox News. With nearly 200 million certified singles sold, Katy Perry is quite literally a living, breathing pop star and icon, and one of the best-selling music artists of all time. Some music artists have had a more clear rise and fall attributable to extraneous variables. Katy Perry has never really had a fall, not in the formal sense at least. Despite all of the memes about Katy's platinum blonde pixie haircut, the controversies around her as a judge on American Idol, and the very honest, sometimes emotionally raw moments she has experienced in the public eye in recent years, Katy Perry remains one of the single greatest musicians of the 21st century, with an absolutely undeniable ear and hand for writing and recording hit records. Nearly 14 years after its release, Teenage Dream remains one of the cornerstones of pop music, and has been compared to the likes of Michael Jackson's Thriller when trying to define the greatest pop albums of all time and their respective cultural impact and influence through the current day. Katy Perry has achieved a level of success and fame that every musician dreams of, but I think even Katy would agree, her level of fame and success comes at the cost of any chance at privacy, which I would argue can lead to near total isolation. I typically love to shine a light on underdog storylines in pop culture like Azalea Banks or Regina Hall, and at face value, Katy Perry wouldn't appear to fit this narrative, but her story is absolutely one of triumph out of tragedy. It's a story I have yet to see any YouTuber try to tell, a humble, albeit unfrequented storyline of Katy Perry's life and career that's bothered me as much as it's fascinated me for years. It's been 4 years since Katy Perry's last album, Smile, in 2020, which turned out to be a critical and commercial fizzle compared to every other album she's released. Given Katy's birth of her daughter Daisy, her growing shoe empire, and her selling off her music rights in 2023, I'm left with the question, is Katy Perry's music career coming to an end, or is there a light at the end of the tunnel for a music revival down the line? Many people online claim that pop music has died, and while hyperbolic, I do think that pop music has taken a nosedive, and part of this pop death understandably came directly after the release of many pop masterpieces in the early 2010s, notably with Lady Gaga's The Fame, Kesha's Animal, and obviously Teenage Dream. We essentially got one of the best eras of pop music ever, and after the genre peaked, it declined. While the internet foams at the mouth to crown a new pop star, and while pop music newcomers like Tate McRae, Kim Petras, and Chappell Roan are crossing their fingers, toes, and internal organs that they are the next pop princess, I think this is the perfect time to examine a lesser-known story about one of the biggest pop stars of all time. Exploring Katy Perry's upbringing, discography, and present-day life in 2024 through her most prominent and influential work, Teenage Dream, can further illustrate how Katy's career would eventually unfold, why her song The One That Got Away inevitably became a real-life storyline for her, and why Teenage Dream has equally defined Katy Perry's legacy as much as it has stifled her remaining musical viability. Born Catherine Elizabeth Hudson on October 25, 1984, Katy Perry was raised in highly unusual circumstances. Katy's parents, Mary Christine Perry and Maurice Keith Hudson, were both devout Pentecostal pastors with extreme restrictions for their children to adhere to. Raised in Santa Barbara, California, Katy's entire childhood was religion, constantly praying, reading the Bible, attending church, traveling with her parents to preach gospel and set up churches across the country to promote the Pentecostal faith. Attending both the Paradise Valley Christian School in Arizona and the Santa Barbara Christian School, Katy was essentially being molded into a devout Pentecostal Christian from birth, expected to constantly adhere to the rigid lifestyle and limitations on contact with the world outside. Katy and her siblings have stated on numerous occasions that they were not allowed to eat the General Mills cereal Lucky Charms, as according to Katy's mother, the word luck reminded her of Lucifer, aka the devil. And speaking of the devil, Katy's mom also did not allow her kids to call deviled eggs by their name, but instead referred to them as angeled eggs. Katy's parents did not believe in television shows, video games, or even going to the movies. Katy's parents feared that these extraneous activities would lead to interactions with the devil. Obviously to us, this all sounds ridiculous, and it is, and Katy knew this, but Katy knew pleasing her parents was an expectation, not a request. Although this internal struggle would in time prove to be the driving force behind Katy Perry, the artist, and the brand we know of today. And if you're wondering why Katy's parents were so strict with their children, it's because in the 60s and 70s, Katy's parents did a lot of shrooms and LSD, and they both met and got together when they had a come to Jesus moment after the psychedelics wore off. And speaking of Jesus, back at the Jesus camps that Katy would attend while traveling, a lot of the kids that were at the camp did not have as strict of a childhood as Katy did, which meant they were exposed to the outside world to a much larger extent. This would expose Katy to music and media that she did not even know existed. Kids at Katy's camp would sneak in movies and CDs inside for all the kids to enjoy. One of the kids at camp would introduce Katy to Alanis Morissette, specifically her song You Oughta Know from the 1995 album Jagged Little Pill. This exposure to Alanis was a game changer for Katy. The seeds for rebellion and punk that Katy would come to be known for were just beginning to sprout at this point in her childhood around age 11. Aside from the religious asceticism that infected Katy's day-to-day living conditions, her family was also incredibly poor. If you thought the business of opening Pentecostal churches across the country in the 1990s was lucrative, think again. Katy's parents were typically on food stamps and welfare, as they were living paycheck to paycheck for a majority of Katy's youth. It's why we now have that viral clip of Katy explaining why she couldn't go to the dentist until she was older as a result of her parents not being able to afford healthcare.
Well, I did have 13 cavities one time.
Really?
So that you can imagine why I'm so freaked out. When I was a kid, you know, I didn't really go to the dentist a lot, and I didn't really go to the doctor. And then when I finally went, they were like, you might as well just get like a whole new set of teeth.
Why didn't you go to the dentist?
I was poor.
Oh.
Next question!
Katy led a fairly isolated life. Only allowed to listen to Christian gospel music, Katy would follow in her older sister Angela's footsteps, being enrolled in voice lesson classes at 9 years old. On Katy's 13th birthday, her parents bought her a guitar, which then allowed her to start practicing and writing her own music. In addition to joining her parents' ministry choir, Katy began performing in live venues in small clubs and coffee shops, leading to her obtaining her GED at 15 in order to embark on a Christian music career. After several small live performances, in addition to taking private vocal lessons at the Music Academy of the West in Montecito, California, Katy caught the attention of two Christian rock musicians based out of Nashville. After flying out Katy to Nashville to record demos and write music, Katy was signed to Red Hill Records, an independent Christian record label, who gave her the chance to record a debut album. Released on March 6, 2001 at just 16 years old, Katy Hudson is the debut album from then contemporary Christian rock artist Katy Hudson, formerly known as Katy Perry. Unfortunately, Red Hill Records would file for bankruptcy and shut down operations before the album could even be marketed or promoted, leading to Katy Hudson only selling roughly 200 copies. The album wasn't a hit with critics either, indicating that maybe this wasn't the right path for Katy. Music was for sure her calling. She loved writing music and she had the right sound, but maybe the wrong genre? After her Christian debut flopped, Katy opted to move to Los Angeles at age 17 in order to work with her dream record producer, Glenn Ballard. Katy specifically sought out working with Glenn Ballard from the moment she switched to recording non-Christian music. Why, you may ask? Well, Glenn just so happened to co-write and produce an album from Katy's upbringing, the aforementioned Jagged Little Pill. This decision proved to be pivotal for Katy, as Glenn immediately understood her deep baritone voice and incredible songwriting capabilities. Katy's potential to be a big musician was there, but she just had to hone it in. Initially, Katy signed to Glenn's label, Java Records, under the umbrella of the Island Def Jam Music Group. Slated for a new debut album under the new stage name of Katy Perry, the album was shelved after Java was dropped as a label. Katy then was signed again to Columbia Records, and as she is nearly done recording her new debut album to be released in 2006, she is yet again dropped from another label. After being dropped by Columbia, Katy was then signed to Capitol Records, where she would finally get to release a new debut slated for 2008. In November of 2007, Katy would release the video for You're So Gay, a minor controversial LGBT hit at the time, meant to introduce Katy to a new audience. Wanting to ensure they get a return on their investment, Capitol Records paired Katy with controversial record producer Dr. Luke and hitmaker Max Martin. The label was certain that Dr. Luke and Max Martin would nearly guarantee a bona fide hit off of her new debut. Co-writing and producing her first single with Capitol Records with the pair, I Kissed a Girl was released on April 28, 2008 as the lead up to her new album. I Kissed a Girl was a gigantic success, topping the Billboard Hot 100 for 7 consecutive weeks. Initially criticized for queerbaiting, I Kissed a Girl would go on to be certified 6 times platinum and become one of the best-selling digital songs of the 21st century. And with the success of I Kissed a Girl, anticipation was really building for Katy's debut album. Initially titled Fingerprints, but later changed, One of the Boys was released on June 17, 2008 as the first album as Katy Perry. One of the Boys reached number 9 on the Billboard Hot 200, selling over 7 million albums worldwide. The album's second single, Hot and Cold, released on September 8th, 2008, eventually reached number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100. Katy's third single, Thinking of You, released on January 9th, 2009, reached number 29 on the Billboard Hot 100, while Katy's fourth single from one of the boys, Waking Up in Vegas, released on April 21st, 2009, became Katy's third top 10 hit, reaching number 8 on the Billboard Hot 100. In January of 2009, Katy embarked on her first world tour to promote one of the boys, aptly named the Hello Katy Tour. As a newly formed artist with a debut album, one of the boys was liquid gold compared to any of Katy's Christian album efforts. It was also around this time that Katy began dating and eventually engaged to British comedian Russell Brand in December of 2009, after meeting on the set of his film Get Him to the Greek. Their relationship was chaotic, Russell was chaotic, the press loved it all fed into Katy's overall image very well at the time. One of the boys laid the groundwork for Katy's 50s pinup image, rebellious and sultry style, and infectious hit songs with catchy hooks and edgy lyrics. One of the boys by any metric was a mammoth success, and so obviously the next logical step would be to follow that up with newer projects to capitalize on the mainstream media attention and airplay. Following up an album with so many hits would be a complex endeavor for any artist to take on. But despite all of the odds and likelihood of failure to repeat the same level of success, Katy Perry's sophomore album would become one of the most defining albums of an entire generation. 2010 was a career-defining year for Katy Perry. Teaming up with hitmaker duo of Dr. Luke and Max Martin once again, Katy Perry released California Girls featuring Snoop Dogg on May 7th, 2010, as the lead single to her sophomore album. California Girls peaked at number 1, staying there for 6 consecutive weeks. Katy then released Teenage Dream, the single, on July 23rd, 2010, which then went on to reach number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 just 2 months later in September. On August 24th, 2010, Katy Perry's long-awaited sophomore album Teenage Dream was released, debuting at number 1 on the Billboard 200 to initially mixed reviews from critics. Katy would release her third single from Teenage Dream titled Firework, which just 2 months later would also reach number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in December of 2010. As if Katy's career couldn't get any bigger, on February 16th, 2011, Katy Perry released her fourth single from Teenage Dream titled E.T. featuring Kanye West. The song immediately shot to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, making E.T. Katy's fifth number 1 hit single and her fourth consecutive number 1. This was at the same time she launched her highly successful California Dreams tour. And yes, if you're thinking, there's no way she had another number 1 after that, right? It's so short to have so many hits, right? Well, on June 6th, 2011, Katy Perry released her fifth single from Teenage Dream titled Last Friday Night, aka TGIF, which yes, just 2 months later would peak at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100 in August of 2011, making Katy Perry the first solo female artist in history to have 5 number 1 hits on the Billboard Hot 100 from a single album. Although, during the success of her album Teenage Dream, her California Dreams tour, and slowly taking over the world, Katy's world was slowly crumbling behind the scenes. On November 11th, 2011, the music video for Katy's sixth single from Teenage Dream, titled The One That Got Away, was released. The video, told through the wife's eyes, portrays a loveless relationship between an elderly couple, intertwined with flashbacks of the wife's true love of her life from her younger days, remembering the good days they shared before he tragically passes away in a car crash after a devastating fight. The music video perfectly complements the pain and longing you can hear in Katy's voice throughout the song. Little did she know as she was recording the music video for The One That Got Away, Katy Perry would experience losing the love of her life in reality. On New Year's Eve 2011, 1 month after The One That Got Away's music video released, Katy Perry would receive a brutal and cowardly text message from her husband at the time, Russell Brand, informing her that he wanted a divorce. Just moments before Katy was supposed to go on stage, Katy's 14-month marriage came to an end over a single text message. Citing conflicting schedules, her meteoric level of fame, and lack of activism as the main reasons for divorcing Katy, Russell hasn't talked to Katy since sending that text. The parallels between The One That Got Away and Katy's real life can't be ignored. In a matter of weeks, Katy went from playing an old woman reminiscing about a past lover from her youth to becoming that same younger version of that same woman in the music video, wishing she could still have the lover that she once did. As euphoric and spellbinding as falling in love is, the fear of losing that loved one is both debilitating and a very tangible reality, making it a very realistic fear. The One That Got Away is similar to the 2015 hit song I Took a Pill in Ibiza from Mike Posner. On the surface, you can vibe to the beat and dance to the chorus as long as you don't pay attention to the lyrics. Any surface level examination of the lyrics of either song would prove that the beat is just a disguise for a very sad story being told. My reaction to The One That Got Away has changed over the years as well. I was in middle school when the song was originally released, and I can remember being at middle school prom with my friends shouting at the top of our lungs on the dance floor. Now when I listen to the song, I genuinely want to give Katy a hug. As an adult in my mid-20s, I have come to understand the profound but simple story being told in The One That Got Away's lyrics. Having been in relationships myself, I totally get the raw emotion in Katy's music video and the bittersweet sentimental nature of her lyrics to a level that's indescribable, and yet at the same time I feel like I could write several books on what I feel when I hear this song specifically. By no means Katy's saddest song, and yet for some reason, I feel a deep sorrow whenever I hear The One That Got Away. The One That Got Away peaked at number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 in January of 2012, surprisingly, in my opinion unjustifiably, never reaching number 1. If only she wasn't competing with LMFAO's Sexy and I Know It and Rihanna's We Found Love at the same time. 2 months after wrapping her California Dreams tour, Katy released Teenage Dream, The Complete Confection, on March 23, 2012. The album featured 3 new songs, 3 new remixes, and an acoustic version of The One That Got Away. The lead single, Part of Me, was released on February 13, 2012, which was seen as Katy's redemption song post-divorce from Russell Brand, immediately shot to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming Katy's 7th number 1 hit. Katy's second single from The Complete Confection was Wide Awake, which would be released on May 22, 2012, ultimately peaking at number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100. If only that song wasn't competing with Call Me Maybe from Carly Rae Jepsen. Both Part of Me and Wide Awake have clear references to her ex-husband Russell Brand, despite Part of Me being written prior to the divorce. On July 5, 2012, Katy released her autobiographical concert documentary film titled Katy Perry, Part of Me. The film was well received, and critics praised how raw and vulnerable Katy was during intimate moments of her life during her California Dreams tour. The film is currently the 11th highest grossing documentary to date. When the divorce finalized, Katy and fellow singer John Mayer got into a relationship in August of 2012. After the unbelievable success of Teenage Dream, Katy immediately began working on her 3rd studio album in November of 2012. With a planned release for late 2013. And on October 18, 2013, Katy Perry's 3rd studio album, Prism, was released. Debuting at number 1 on the Billboard Hot 200, Prism was originally conceived as a dark, melancholy album that lamented on her marriage with Russell Brand. Eventually, the album would transform into a more self-reflective and hopeful project toward its conclusion with a very prominent disco dance vibe. During the time of recording Prism, Katy was struggling with the idea of unaliving herself after her divorce with Russell. This would explain why the original concepts for Prism were much more unsettling than the finished end product. On August 10, 2013, Katy released her first single from Prism titled Roar. Roar skyrocketed to number 1 on the Billboard Hot 100, becoming her 8th number 1 hit, was one of the highest selling singles of 2013, and is still to date Katy Perry's best selling single, being certified diamond, and it is currently the 19th most watched YouTube video in history with over 4 billion cumulative views. Following up Roar, Katy's second single from Prism was Unconditionally. The song was less upbeat than Roar and more of a ballad, peaking at number 14 on the Billboard Hot 100. However, Katy's third single would yet again prove that Katy was a certified powerhouse to be reckoned with. On December 13, 2013, Katy released Dark Horse, featuring Academy Award winner
Juicy J.
Dark Horse quickly crept its way to the top spot of the Billboard Hot 100, became the second highest selling single of 2014, and is currently the 26th most watched video in YouTube history, sitting comfortably at 3.7 billion cumulative views. Dark Horse, in addition to Firework and Roar, has also since been certified diamond, meaning they have all sold at least 10 million units, both combined sales and streams. The fourth and fifth singles to be released from Prism were Birthday and This Is How We Do, respectively. Both received moderate success, peaking at both 17 and 24 on the Billboard Hot 100, respectively. Since Dark Horse's chart-topping position in 2014, Katy has not had a number one hit since. In February of 2014, Katy would end her relationship with John Mayer, although not long after, in May of 2014, Katy would embark on her third world tour, the Prismatic World Tour, which concluded its run in October of 2015. While in the middle of her tour, on February 1st, 2015, Katy Perry would headline the 49th Super Bowl halftime show alongside Lenny Kravitz and Missy Elliott to a then record 118 million people. Katy Perry was on top of the world. Everything that young, starry-eyed Catherine Elizabeth Hudson had dreamed of was coming true. She could finally afford everything her parents couldn't. And in early 2016, Katy began dating actor Orlando Bloom. After near total world domination for several years in the music industry, Katy Perry began working on her fourth studio album in the summer of 2016. That same summer in July, Katy released her song Rise, a hopeful mid-tempo song that served as an unofficial anthem for the 2016 Rio de Janeiro Olympic Games, peaking at number 11 on the Billboard Hot 100. The song was a standalone single with no relation to her fourth album. On February 10th, 2017, Katy released her first promotional single for her upcoming album titled Chained to the Rhythm, featuring Jamaican-born singer Skip Marley and co-written by Sia. A playful, quirky music video for Chained to the Rhythm was released 11 days later on February 21st, 2017. The song eventually peaked at number 4 on the Billboard Hot 100. Katy's second promotional single was the song Bon Appetit, featuring Migos. However, despite an equally playful tongue-in-cheek music video, the song only peaked at number 59 on the Billboard Hot 100. Katy's third promotional single, Swish Swish, featuring Nicki Minaj, was released on May 19th, 2017. However, yet again, despite what was supposed to be a playful music video, only helped the song peak at number 46 on the Billboard Hot 100. I think in many ways, people label this time period and this music video specifically as the quote-unquote downfall of Katy Perry. Appalled by the blonde pixie haircut, this is the same time as the meme emerging of Katy Perry live streaming on YouTube looking hopeless on a red carpet. In February of 2017, Katy started her very successful shoe line called Katy Perry Collections, which is now available in Walmart. On June 9th, 2017, Katy Perry's fourth studio album, titled Witness, was released, debuting atop the Billboard 200. Witness received mixed reviews from critics and is undoubtedly Katy's most electro and hyperpop album. Most critics seem to agree that Witness just was not Katy's best work, some even going as far to say that it's formulaic pop with no personal touches. Katy began her Witness tour in September of 2017, with the tour concluding in August of 2018. In March of 2018, Katy Perry started serving as a regular judge on the ABC revival of American Idol, making a very publicized $25 million a year, making her the second highest paid American Idol judge ever behind Simon Cowell. On Valentine's Day of 2019, Orlando Bloom and Katy would get engaged, and they remain a couple to this day, although not officially married as of this recording. Throughout 2019, Katy released 3 promotional singles for her upcoming 5th studio album as Katy Perry, Never Really Over, Small Talk, and Harley's in Hawaii, with Never Really Over reaching number 15 on the Billboard Hot 100. Harley's in Hawaii would also eventually become a very popular TikTok sound in late 2023. On August 28, 2020, Katy Perry released her 5th and to-date most recent album titled Smile. That same month, just a few days before Smile hit shelves, Katy gave birth to her and Orlando's first daughter, Daisy Dove Bloom. Ultimately, Smile peaked at number 5 on the Billboard 200 chart, by far being Katy Perry's worst performing album by sales and chart metrics to date. Smile is the only album besides Katy Perry's first album, One of the Boys, to not reach number 1. Smile did not have an accompanying tour as well, although this can easily be attributed to the worldwide chaos that took place in 2020 and 2021. Remember? In December of 2021, when the world opened up again, slightly, Katy premiered the concert Residency play show at the Resorts World Las Vegas. The larger-than-life, cartoon-like, candy-inspired world of play helped expand and further cement Katy's pop culture status as she has now sold out shows on the Las Vegas Strip, another lifelong dream of hers. Concluding her play show in November of 2023, Katy became the 8th highest-grossing female residency in the history of Las Vegas, 18th overall. The show was simultaneously praised by critics and audiences, and could easily make a return nearly guaranteed to sell out shows as it originally did. Although, interestingly, near the end of her play show Las Vegas run, Katy sold her entire music catalog to Litmus Music for a reported $225 million in September of 2023, meaning she no longer owns most, if any, of the rights to her music. And this has been a growing trend recently with many music artists. Justin Bieber sold 100% of his rights to his music for $200 million in January of 2023. As recently as February 2024, 50% of Michael Jackson's publishing and master recordings were sold to Sony Music Group for a reported $600 million, which leads me into one of the key reasons I have wanted to make this video for quite some time now. When an artist sells their entire music catalog, it's typically indicative of a few things. The artist has the obvious immediate monetary gain, assuming they have a valuable discography, and in the case of Katy Perry, her entire music catalog has the value of a Mega Millions lottery winning. Artists also sell their music rights when they hold nostalgic media, and that media can be licensed for further usage to bring about future revenue streams. Once again, in Katy's case, she has a beloved discography. Tens of millions of fans adore Katy's music, and at this point, at least 2 generations have grown up experiencing her artistry and music firsthand. In 15 to 20 years, I can totally see songs like Last Friday Night being revived in the form of a high school prom scene in a movie, similar to how the movie Perks of Being a Wallflower revived the song Come On Eileen by the Dexys Midnight Riders. Maybe in a decade, The One That Got Away could be featured in the season finale of a big TV show on Netflix, the way that Running Up That Hill had an enormous revival after being featured on Stranger Things. The nostalgia value alone for Katy's discography is huge. A less common reason an artist would sell their discography is to essentially raise money for other projects that they're working on, not necessarily related to the creative work that they do. If we're being honest here, I believe this is the very reason Katy Perry sold her music catalog. If you peel through Katy Perry's social media in 2024, it is essentially promotion for her shoe company, clips from American Idol, and her and sometimes her husband showing off her red carpet looks at various events. Katy doesn't seem interested in releasing or promoting new music, and conversely, she seems extremely enthusiastic about growing her shoe brand and raising her family with Orlando Bloom. I do think Katy Perry will release more music in the future, but I do genuinely think she will spend the rest of her career trying to replicate the cultural impact that she had with Teenage Dream, ultimately, sadly to no avail. Historically, when we look at a music artist's most successful work, or if they're lucky enough to have multiple successes, they rarely finish strong. Every artist has a lifespan and a period of time when their name is most commercially viable. Yes, there are chameleons like Cher and Madonna and Mariah Carey who can take a break for years and come back and sell millions of records with ease. And don't get me wrong, Katy Perry can do that as well. But does Katy Perry want to make an album like Teenage Dream again? Is that fire, that need, and that grit there to constantly grind out songs and write some of the most genre-defining music? Based on the public and critical reception of her most recent album Smile in 2020, the recent sale of her music catalog in 2023, and the hyper-focus on her personal businesses, I don't think Katy Perry is going to leave an impact in the remainder of her music career that is comparable to what she achieved with her debut One of the Boys, her follow-up Teenage Dream, or even her third album Prism. When you release an album as successful and historic as Teenage Dream, you immediately become solidified by that work. Everything you do and have ever done will be compared to that project. On one hand, I'm deeply saddened by the idea of Katy Perry not wanting to focus on music. I look back so fondly on the Teenage Dream era of music specifically with such rose-tinted glasses. Maybe it's because that time in the world seemed so carefree before social media completely took over and made the world feel more empty and made music feel more manufactured. And maybe it's because I'm still young and stupid and the dreamy, sultry pop just speaks to my ears. Or maybe it's because I more fully comprehend what Katy was trying to say through her lyrics. And I feel like I more passionately relate to her personal experiences because the songs I once sang in middle school, I have now lived. Maybe it's because at the time I was just starting to live my teenage dream, which makes me heartbroken at the fact that Katy never got to live hers. But on the opposite hand, I am so ecstatic and proud of Katy Perry for being able to become this massive global megastar with an incomprehensible amount of records and #1 hits, and to dominate the world in such a short period of time and the defiant way that she did it is nothing short of miraculous. Katy Perry gave a voice to the rebels, the mischievous kids who snuck out at night past curfew, the kids who struggled with bullying in school, and the LGBT youth who often felt isolated at home, and the now multiple generations of young girls and women who felt empowered by Katy's own definition of feminism and display of sexual promiscuity. If Katy Perry were to hypothetically retire tomorrow, her cultural impact is indelible, immutable, and undeniable. Katy is one of the greatest pop singers to have lived, and we are fortunate to still still have her living. And while she may not always get the respect she deserves, and as she continues to shield unfair criticism throughout her career, history will forever remember Katy Perry's name. Teenage Dream, the album, will long outlive Katy when she passes away in her old age, as I'm sure many of her songs will outlive her as well. But no need to worry, Katy. You won't need to wait until another life to be someone's perfect girl. Someone who will keep all of their promises, be you and them against the world. It seems like you may have already found them. After all, you are the one that got away.